Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals, and today we are going to be talking about the P320, also going over how it performs in my humble opinion. Before we get into all of that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is free and it does help us out quite a bit, and go ahead and comment your favorite or least favorite attribute about the maligned Sig P320. Now, full disclosure on this model is that I picked this up at my local LGS used for $3 flat, which is a very inexpensive price for a modern firearm from a major manufacturer. And a slight add-on to that note is that there was a plethora of used 320s to select from. Take from that what you will. Now, getting into basics of the model that we have here, this is the Sig P320 Compact, which means that we have a 15+1 capacity grip frame and we have a 3.9-inch barrel. Now, this 320 specifically is pre-upgrade. I asked one of the contacts that I have at Sig to run the serial number, and this one has not been upgraded. This one here was one of the early models that had a slight kerfuffle when it came to being dropped at a certain angle, so among some of its other potential issues, this one is definitely not drop safe. But let's move past all of that for a moment, shall we, and let's go ahead and talk about what the thing actually is. I don't have much experience on 320s. Most of the 320s that I've shot have been the bigger X5 raced out version, comms, ports, whatever it may be, and they actually shoot quite nice. So this is actually the first time that I've got to play around with a stock 320. So starting off with the grip and the grip texture or lack thereof, this is perhaps the worst feeling grip module that I've ever put my hands on, probably only second to something like a High Point with how cheap the grip feels. And what I mean by cheap is that it is incredibly slick. There is a little bit of texture on it, but it is so fine that it's not very confidence inspiring. Subjectively, it feels very light and cheap and is, again, not exactly what I'm looking for in a grip. Moving on from there, this is of course the 15+1 capacity. The mags are a little on the expensive side, 30 to 40 bucks pop 15+1 capacity, which is pretty good. On my small-ish size hands, the grip is the proper size, and the width of the grip is a little bit fatter than some others on the market, so there is more surface area there, which may lead to the fact why this actually shoots really well, even though there's a lot of things that I don't like about it necessarily. Magazine release is fine. Moving forward to controls, we have ambi, slide, stop, and release, which is nice, fairly low profile. Up front, we have our takedown lever, because of course this is a modular gun, meaning that you have a chassis on the inside, so you can actually take this chassis, put it in a different frame, and you can buy the frames, have them shipped directly to your door, which is quite nice. That is a nice feature of the 320. Some of the other stuff, not quite so much. Talking about the trigger briefly, the trigger on the 320s is somewhat maligned as a spongy, yucky trigger. While it's certainly not good, I would estimate total pull weight to be about 5.5 to 6 pounds. Reset is very soft, so I don't really like that subjectively. However, again, when shooting it was not a problem whatsoever, and personally I wouldn't touch it. Now up front we have an accessory rail. Currently I have a Streamlight TLR7 sub on here, which is okay. Of course, a bigger flashlight would work a little better and actually fit in some of my other holsters, but I'm not holstering this for reasons we will get into a little bit later. Moving up to the slide, this is not a optic cut slide. Again, we have a 3.9-inch barrel. We have front and rear slide serrations. We have night sights with, I believe, a 6-inch sight radius, which is average, some might say above average in terms of length, and that about rounds it out for what the thing actually is. So now we can go ahead and talk about shooting it. Again, this is my first time shooting a stock 320, and with the compact size, or Glock 19 size, if you will, it shot very, very well. Now we have 12 rounds. We'll do 2 more. Maybe we'll do back-to-back, so 6 and 6. We'll see how that feels. I was pleasantly surprised with the shootability of the handgun. Shooting doubles fairly quickly, shooting bill drills with it up close was not a problem whatsoever. It is a snappy recoil impulse, and even though the grip texture and subjective feel isn't what I would like, there's enough material here for me to get and build a really good grip out of it, so I didn't have any problems shooting it whatsoever. Again, the trigger is somewhat like subpar compared to other options in the market, but when actually shooting it at speed, it's pretty irrelevant. So like subjectively, there are things that I don't like about it, but when I actually go out there and shoot it, I enjoy it quite a bit. I don't do a lot of shooting with iron sights. The one thing that I will say is that from the factory, or at least whoever owned this before me, they are not regulated, so they're actually off to the right a couple inches at, say, 10 yards, which isn't a big deal, but when we're stretching out to 50 or 60, then you're aiming off steel or basically to the edge of the paper, depending on what you're shooting at. So that is something that I will need to fix because I do plan to continue to shoot it. So again, in terms of how it actually shoots, I actually like it quite a bit. Now, in terms of reliability on 320s has never really been the issue. Usually it's some sort of parts failures, whether it's the original barrels blowing out the sides, or some would say uncommanded discharges, or not being drop safe. There are other issues related to the 320, but it's usually not reliability. Again, I am going to be putting a lot more rounds on this. The only thing that I'm not going to be doing with it is carrying it or competing with it, even though it would be kind of funny to compete with the stock 320 in this configuration. If we talk about accuracy for just a second, I'm sure mechanically it's a very accurate gun. In terms of functional accuracy, at 15 yards, I was able to get 5 rounds basically touching, so it's more than accurate enough. And again, even though there are subjective little things that I don't like about it, it all comes together to actually shoot quite nicely. Now, going forward with it, what am I going to be doing with it? I think I'm going to leave it basically stock. I don't think I'm going to touch anything internally on it, and I think the only thing that I might have done to it is cut the factory slide with some sort of optics cut. That might be the only thing that I do to this as I keep it around for a little while. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is not the drop safe version, so without a round in the chamber, just with the striker cocked, I did try and take a rubber mallet to the back to get it to go off, just to see if I could get that sear to disengage or whatnot. And it did not happen on mine, and I tried for several minutes to get it to go, and it did not. So even though I'm relatively confident in its shooting performance, I am not going to be carrying it or holstering it, and I'll just, shoot it on every range trip or so and see how it holds up long term. So bringing it back to value, again, on the secondhand market, these are currently very, very inexpensive. That being said, do I recommend picking them up? Not particularly. Again, I think there are other options on the market that subjectively do the same thing a little bit better, that subjectively I like more, and that don't have the possibility of doing things that you don't like and ruining your day or your life. So for me, even though they are currently inexpensive and kind of a lot of gun for the money, I personally just don't think it's worth sticking with the 320, especially considering the slight upgrade cost to something else that doesn't have the reputation the 320 does. With all that out of the way, gentlemen, let me know what you think of the Sig P320 Compact in the comments down below. Let me know what I should do to it or try to get it to do that might be entertaining to see on camera. And with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.